Knock, knock.
Uh-oh, someone's at the door. Where's the dog? Oh, I hear him barking. Someone grab the dog.
Grab him. Don't open the door yet.
Wait, hold on. I'll be at the door in a second. Someone grab the dog, please, and put him in his crate.
If this sounds like too much chaos to you, you'll want to listen to today's episode of the McCannDogs podcast. Welcome back. Hey, Swanee, our shop dog looks really cozy against that new fuzzy pillow here in the studio,
doesn't he? Does. Yes, we've been upgrading the studio to fuzzy pillows to match the fuzzy dogs.
That's right.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. We'll have to celebrate that with the powers that be.
And of course, I lost the pillow to Honda.
The pillow to Honda?
I lost the pillow.
Oh, you lost the battle for the pillow.
Right, I lost the battle for the pillow. Actually, there was no battle.
Yeah, you just gave it up.
Right, yeah. Now, if Honda was like a young dog, I might have taken the pillow, but no.
No pillows for spring chickens,
no.
Only old dogs.
Yes.
Oh, he looks so comfy there.
He does.
Well, you know what I thought was really great?
What?
His door manners when he came in the studio today.
He did have very good door manners. Yes.
And he greeted people very politely.
Right.
And he wandered around, and he was a good ambassador for a dog who has excellent understanding of the door.
Right, exactly.
And I think that'll be a great topic to talk about today. So we want to break down all things door related, right? Mm-hmm. All things front door related.
Right.
Manners, not rushing the door, not running through it if it's open just because it's open. You know, all of the things that are really, really important to have in your average home.
Right.
You know,
yes.
If you don't live in sort of you can get away with a little bit more if you're inside of an apartment building, maybe. You know, if your dog rushes the door, they're just out in the hallway.
Right,
and they're safe. But if you are in your average family home that opens onto a driveway, which usually opens onto a street, that can be a little bit of a challenge.
Concerns with the door, yes.
For sure.
So, and before you're a dog owner, you never really think about people knocking or doorbells ringing. It's like, someone's at the door. But when you become
it might be carolers.
Right, yes, Christmas carolers. When you become a dog owner, all of a sudden, you dread the knock at the door dread the doorbell.
Yeah. You know what's really funny? So the other day, just as an aside, I was watching one of the students' videos in our online training. We give support, we watch videos, and a student was working on door manners, and it was actually really funny. She was working on door manners and she was working on attention with the door manners to the point where the dog was so glued to her. I actually thought, I think this video's frozen. And then there was a knock at the door and a doorbell ring. And I still thought, I think this video's frozen. But then I got quickly distracted by Ned, hearing the doorbell. He thought,
something's at your house
happening. And he jumped up and started barking, which is totally fine, totally acceptable for him to do. But the funny thing is, I don't have a doorbell in my house. So Levon had no idea what the noise was. He was looking at Ned. What are you barking at? What's going on? He was looking all around, all over the place, but he didn't make a peep because he couldn't figure out what it was, of course.
Right.
Whereas Ned has experience with doorbells and knocking, and he thought, see, I'm like 200 feet off the road. Nobody's really knocking on my door at all these days, so even a door knock. But yeah, Levon's never heard a doorbell, so it was quite funny, I thought. There it is. There's signs of what they know.
Yes. I think another thing dogs love about the unannounced doorbell or the unannounced door knock is we rush to the door.
Yeah, we do. I know, we're always excited about it, right?
It's like, who's at the door? Yeah. And we'll go and peek out, and now we're rushing to the door. And you know, because often it's a food delivery.
Is that what happens at your house?
And dogs, dogs love fun, fast motion, especially if you have a herding breed, a dog that's, stimulated by that movement.
And it might be a herding breed delivering your pizza.
Right, it could be. It could be, yes.
You know what? There's $1 million idea. Why haven't we put dogs to work delivering our things?
I think dogs need to do a lot more work. They are. Yeah, they do take advantage of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
We would spend far less gas. Anyways, that's just a silly idea, Shannon. That's what you were supposed to say, but you're Swanee, so you feed into my silly ideas. I love it. Alrighty, so the door is a hub of activity usually, right? It's this portal to excitement.
It's a portal to joy.
Portal to joy. Ode to joy through the portal.
Right.
So the door opens, we go for walks. The door opens, somebody comes in. The door opens, food gets delivered, right? There's all this excitement at the door. And if we don't counter that excitement, we're going to have a dog that gets overstimulated at that sound of the doorbell, at the sound of the knock, at the sound of the thumb latch going down or the knob being turned. You know, they're right there, right? They're right there in excitement. Balance is such an important thing when it comes to dog training. So we need to make sure that we balance out that excitement with something else to do at the door. And that is that's usually my main tactic with things, is to make sure that I have enough balance that I can ask for anything in any given situation. And my dog goes, oh, sure, yeah, I've practiced that. No big deal.
Yes.
Now, what do you do when you have a puppy? So let's start with our babies. We're going to talk about adult dogs. We're going to talk about getting older dogs and dealing with these scenarios too. But say you've gotten a puppy. What are some good ways to really set the tone at the door? What do you do when your doorbell rings and you have a puppy?
I don't go rushing off to the door with my puppy in hot pursuit, because my pup learns then, bong, Christine runs, chase Christine.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that.
Was that bong a doorbell?
Yeah, that's my doorbell impression.
That's what your doorbell sounds like?
Bong.
Okay.
No,
I just
actually,
wanted to clarify and have a definition for
dong or something like that. Yeah.
Isn't it ding dong?
Might be ding dong. Mine is bong dong.
Bong dong. I like bong dong. You know what? Let's rename it. We'll make it bong dong.
So most likely when my puppy's a baby, when the doorbell rings, I'm going to place my puppy in the crate. So my puppy's not part of the melee that could happen there.
Yeah.
But one of the big things I do is that when you have a new puppy, it's like when you have anything new in your house, people want to come to visit and see what you got. So people want to come to see your puppy. And what do? They ring the doorbell or knock. You open the door. They, new puppy. They go into this high-pitched... They
knock you over, go
exactly.
running into the house, grab your puppy.
Right, and they have this big love-in with the puppy. They pick up the puppy. They snuggle it. They let the puppy chew their hair, bite their arms. They start
Sounds like fun.
It is.
Yeah.
They start to play with the puppy.
Yeah.
And the puppy goes, oh,
bong.
Right.
In comes bong dong. In comes the person.
Out comes
and
the
then
fun. Yes.
Wow.
Fun.
Okay.
So that even adds to it. So the puppy now has expectations. When people open that door, they're the center of attention. They're the star. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Because everyone loves to play with a 10-pound puppy. People aren't as much, it's not as much fun to play with an 80-pound adult dog.
Yeah,
yes.
It's true. By that time, they've lost their appeal.
Right.
We can move on and get a new puppy, right? No, never. Our old dogs are, as 15-year-old Honda will attest, our old dogs are royalty.
Right,
They are very special. Very, very special. Yes. Alrighty, so one of my favorite tips. I'm emphatic because it really is one of my favorite tips. I think it's just brilliant.
Is it a good tip or just a favorite?
It's just a mediocre tip. It's not really a big one.
But it's
I've built this thing way up. Now it better be a good tip.
Fave.
It wasn't my original tip. That's why I can say it's my favorite because it wasn't my original idea. So I saw it scrolling through Facebook one day and I thought, brilliant. And I've been talking about it ever since and, trying to give credit to whoever it was, but I can't remember, of course. So just know it wasn't me. Don't give me any credit for this, but I'm passing it along. So now I can get to the tip finally.
Shannon's word of wisdom is coming out.
I need to build it up a little bit more first.
Bong dong.
So the sign on the door, right? Putting a sign on the outside of your door that says, hey, we have a puppy in training. Please be patient when you ring the bell, because it takes the pressure off the human, right?
Yes, and I've seen that for newborn babies.
Yeah.
People put newborn baby.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I
or
never even thought of the baby component.
Or even a shift worker. Like, shift worker, please do not ring the doorbell during the day.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Yes. That's a good idea.
Come back in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I've actually thought about putting a note on the door for my my Purelator delivery guy that comes every Monday with food boxes from my food delivery service for me. He tends to be one of those people that does bang on the door. And of course, I'm busy working. So I'm usually, if it's a Monday where we have coaching calls, I'm usually on live. And of course, then the dogs bark and it's like, oh, I really need to remember to somehow, kindly, of course, but politely ask him to just leave it. You know what? You don't need to knock. Thank you, but you don't need to knock.
Say there's a newborn baby in the house.
Yeah, there you go. There's weird things happening in here. Please don't make me. But yeah, it's pressure,
it is a
right?
good idea,
and
yes.
when you think about those things, when you think about somebody's just knocked on my door, I need to get there fast because they can't leave before I figure out who it was. Isn't that the worst thing in the world when somebody knocks on the door, goes away, and then you're like, I swear somebody knocked on my door.
Yep.
Did somebody knock on my door?
And
Where are they?
In this day and age, too, we have, now you don't have to worry about this, but living in the city, I have to worry about porch pirates, too.
Ooh,
so
yes.
as soon as something gets delivered to me, I need to get it inside the house. So, because they follow the trucks. And
I'm sure that's why they're in the habit of knocking. I'm sure you're absolutely right. Yeah, I'm pretty actually, you know what? When I lived at my previous home that was, right on the road basically, with anybody could have porch pirated, and my porch is set up so that you could see, I never lost a thing.
I just remembered something.
What's that?
This has nothing to do with the podcast, but remember you said the next door neighbor's dog came over and pooped on your porch, and then you walked out of the porch and stepped on it.
Yeah, I don't miss living in the city. I'll tell you that for a fact. Oh my goodness.
It's funny. The dog's like, I had to poop on Shannon's porch.
I think it was personal.
Stepped
that dog didn't like me.
Stepped on. Yeah. That's
very
funny.
Strange happenings.
Right.
Very strange. No, seriously though, I think that house, I used to joke that the people across the street were the mayors of the neighborhood. Lovely, lovely people. And they were just always out and about.
Right.
So, and they were retired, so they were always home. There were neighbors down the street that would always be out and about talking to the mayor and the mayor of the neighborhood.
The mayor of wait, where's Alice Street?
Alice Street.
The mayor of Alice Street.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there was lots of good action around my house. I never felt unsafe in that community. I always felt very, very kept. And I mean, I've been talking about this actually for the last couple of days because I was sick recently with the flu and, had to struggle to get all the things done that needed to be done. And we had this big snowstorm during it. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. And it brought back memories of me being on Alice Street and having COVID. And we had a big snowstorm and I was so sick and so weak. And I'm really like staunchly independent. Like, don't try to tell me I can't do something. Don't try to be my hero sort of thing. Like, if I need help, I can ask for help. But I really take pride in being independent. So when I see something that needs to be done, I'm also like, I'm an action person. Right. I'm out there early doing the snow so it doesn't pile up because then it gets harder. And so I think my neighbors were used to seeing me out and about. And there was this big snowstorm happening and I was so sick with COVID and I was so weak and I was looking out the window and I literally was crying because I thought, I don't think I can do this. Right. I don't think I have the strength to get out there and shovel right now. And that was what I was relying on. I didn't have any sort of machine at that point, was just shoveling and like standing there watching this snow accumulating. And then there was like this white knight. My neighbors came and did it. Now, like the mayor across the street came over. He had like a little tractor that he used to do his own. He was probably 80 something. So, he was very independent as well and wanted to make sure that he got his driveway done. So he had a little tractor. So when he saw that I wasn't out there doing it, he came over and started doing my driveway. And then a neighbor from down the street that was another lovely man that lived on the street came up and did my walks. And I was just so grateful. I ended up sending Kip over. When he came home, I sent him over with cards and gift cards for them just to say thank you because I was so grateful. But I was like, this is community. Community is so, so nice. And I feel a little separated from that now, even though I chat with my neighbors and we're friendly. I'm so far back from the road that I don't just see them randomly all the time. And like during the winter, it's kind of like, I kind of exist out here on my own with Kip and whoever, I happen to invite over to visit me. But the rest of the time, it's like, it's very peaceful and quiet.
Yes,
but
a very different life.
Yeah. Anyways, enough about my life.
Let's
talk about my doors.
To doors. Yes.
So that is one of my absolute favorite tips. Put there in the Facebook image that I remember, it was a chalkboard. So they could put whatever message they wanted on there. If there was a very specific delivery or person coming by or whatever, they could put a message to that person. But really it just said, we're raising a puppy. Please be patient while we take care of business. We will get to the door sort of thing. So that gives you time, right? It gives you time to be like, doorbell just rang. Okay, I can take the puppy. I can put them in the crate. You don't have to burst to try to get there and run around the corner and knock yourself out on trying to get there. Yeah. But is there ever situations where you would bring the puppy to the door with you?
If I knew who was at the door. Okay. So say I knew my parents were coming over to visit. Then I perhaps might carry my puppy under my arm and open the door. And my parents would know not to make a huge deal over the puppy. In fact,
now, if they didn't, what would you tell people who were coming over that needed to know that?
I would ask them to ignore the puppy.
Okay.
Yep. Don't even look and smile at the puppy, because they know when you look at them that you're thinking about them.
And you might have to tell them that 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
Because it's going to be really hard.
Right.
When you've got a cute little puppy looking at you and you can hear that tail.
Right. Yes.
It's really hard not to acknowledge them.
Exactly. Yes. So I would say to my parents, I'm going to be bringing the puppy. I'm going to be carrying under my arm. When you come in, just talk to me like normal. Like, don't ooh and ah over the puppy. Don't smile at the puppy. We're just going to come in and
frown at the puppy.
It's going to be very calm. So if it's someone I can pre-coach, then I'm going to. The last thing I want, especially if I have a puppy that's a little bit nervous of people, would be to open the door to somebody, canvassing the neighborhood, and them like, woo, and scaring the puppy even more. So yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's the problem is it's hard to predict what people will do, right? So you really do want to set yourself up for success. And while it's important for the puppy to learn what they need to learn at the door, we don't want them to learn that from, us trying to coach strangers in the moment. There's too much at stake there at that point. So I love the idea of tucking the puppy in the crate for a minute. And actually, I think that really is a great boom for our crate training too.
Yes.
Anytime I have the opportunity to not literally throw, but tuck my puppy into the crate for a very short period of time, I take it. Not that I relish the opportunity to pee when I have a puppy, but when I need to go to the bathroom, I tuck the puppy in the crate. When I need to make a coffee, I tuck the puppy in the crate. If they're not already in the crate, right? I make sure that my puppies are very heavily supervised when they're out and about. So if my puppy is out of the crate, I am 100% invested in what they are doing. I'm not making coffee. I'm not peeing. I'm not doing whatever. I'm invested in what my puppy is doing so that I can set the tone for the rest of their life. Right. I need to give them direction at that point. So if I need to do something that's going to take my attention away from them, I put them in the crate.
Back in the crate, yes. And they might just need to be in the crate for 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
They might only need to be in the crate for 2 minutes.
Yep, absolutely. And the more you practice that thing, I mean, we talked about that, I think, last week a little bit.
Yes, the puppies that protest the crate the most are often the puppies that need to be put in the crate the most to help them learn. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you have a problem, you lean into it to make it better. So lean into it. I'm going to have a shirt made.
So my Saluki cowboy, she was very good. We had a doorbell on that house, and she was very good. She put it all together that the doorbell rings, just automatically run to your crate. So we had a crate set up. It was just in a convenient area of the house, which was actually pretty close to the door. And so she had learned dong bong.
Dong bong.
Yeah. Now I don't know I can't remember what the doorbell was at that house. Maybe it was a ding dong. I don't know. But she would, ding dong, that means to go in my crate for treats. You know what? You should go back to that house and just ring the doorbell. Yeah. And when they come to the door, just say, oh, no, thanks. I didn't want anything. I just needed to refresh my memory about whether it was a dong bong or a ding dong. Yeah. Or a bing bong. Bing bong. Bing bong, yeah.
Bing bong, willy willy ding dong.
I'd like to get one that goes, awooga.
I bet you can. Right. I bet you can get any sort of sound you want. I had back in the actual GPS days before our phones and our cars had GPS, I downloaded Homer Simpson's voice to be my Tom voice.
Yes.
And it was quite funny. He had some lines that he would say and everything. It was great. So, anyways. Yeah. And then when you arrived at your destination, he would celebrate with you. And if you were hitting a toll road, he'd be like, oh, I hope you have money because I spent all mine on ice cream and beer. He would keep me entertained.
Right. That is fun. Yeah.
It was very fun.
Yes.
So back to the ding dong, bing bong stuff. How did you set that up? So this is a tactic that I use as well. Right. I generally have my dogs go to a place,
right,
or I call beds,
like a bed
place.
Or a mat.
Yeah. And I have my dogs go to a place, and that's it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for stopping in for advice. My place, to define it, is some sort of a bed or a raised cot that my dogs understand is a place that they go and settle down on. Right. And when I say go place, they'll go and seek that place out, chill out on it, and they won't get off until I tell them okay. Eventually, right?
Yes.
During the training process, of course, this is all up in the air. But once they are well trained, they understand this quite readily. So I like to say, oh, go place, and then I'll go open the door and deal with whatever it is. Once they're at the point where they can be loose in the house, right?
Yes. And another thing too is that you send the dog to their place or into their crate, but when you open that door, you don't know who's standing there sometimes. You might want your dog to be with you suddenly. It's like I might open the door and there's a man standing there, and it's like, okay, cowboy, here, bring her out, stand beside me. So I want the dog to be able to, as an adult, not be locked away because I might want the dog at the door with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. I love having the dog barks.
Right.
Just for that reason. Like, just so that people know, you know what? There's a dog in this house. And of course, once they see my dogs, they're like, that's not a tough dog.
Well, but they don't know that. Many people don't know that.
Yeah. And Ned's got a good big bark. Actually, Levon does too. He's going to be a year old in less than 2 weeks. Can you believe that?
Is there going to be a party?
There's going to be a party. We're going to have to do a Levon party and podcast or something like that.
Yeah. As long as there's a disco ball, I'm in.
I'll get 2 disco balls.
One for Levon,
one for each of you. Perfect. Alrighty. So, let's talk a little bit about establishing a place or a bed stay or something like that. What do you do to start?
Well, I want to make that place a valuable place for my dog. So at the beginning, I'm not even worrying about the doorbell. I'm just teaching my puppy that going to their raised cot or going to the crate with the open door is a good thing to do. So I'm going to teach them to go there on command, and I'm going to do so by using food rewards.
Excellent. I love what you said, I'm not even going to worry about the doorbell, the bong ding or whatever.
Or the bing bong.
The bing
or
bong.
the awooga.
Awooga. There we go. Let's do that from now on. And we're not even going to worry about the doorbell because that is a later stage, right? That is a dog that understands how to go to the place, how to remain on the place for short periods, and now we're going to start to add challenges to that. But we need to teach the behavior first. And I think a lot of the times that is a little bit lost on people. They think that all this should happen when the excitement's happening, right? They think that all of this stuff should be accomplishable when there's this excitement factor at the door. And the problem is there's too much conflict at that point, right? The dog is conflicted between what you're asking them to do and what's distracting them. And it's natural, of course. If somebody's coming into your house, there's territorial tendencies there that the dog needs to understand how to sort of push through on their own with your guidance, of course, beforehand. There is the excitement factor there. It might be the excitement factor of who the person is. You know, maybe it's just excitement because it's a random stranger. But if it's Uncle Nick.
Or how about Uncle Joe?
Uncle Joe, he's even better.
I know.
You know, Uncle Joe's coming over for a visit, and Uncle Joe's the one that always rolls around on the floor with the dog. Well, oh my gosh, good luck there, right? So it's like learning on a roller coaster. This is not going to happen. Your adrenaline is up. You're screaming. You're focused on other things. There's action happening around you. If I hand you a math test,
screaming.
If I hand you a math test, you're going to smack me, or you're just going to ignore it. You're so busy with everything going on. It's just not going to work. So we need to first establish habits when things are quiet. And then we compound that by adding small distractions, making the distractions bigger, and then getting to the point where the dog is rock solid because you have proofed through this thing with as many different challenges and as many different distractions as you possibly can.
It's like, think of it like your children. If they're studying for an exam the next day, you ask them to go into their bedroom and close the door so it's quiet.
Good one.
You don't say, come on, we're watching the carnival on TV, and we've invited a clown over.
Make sure you come over and do your studying.
Come and sit with us and study.
There's a clown coming. I'm sorry, but I'm stuck on that moment. I can't. I just can't even get past it. It makes the back of my shoulders like that chill feeling.
If anyone ever invites Shannon to their house and she's overstaying her welcome, just bring out the clowns. She'll be gone in a second.
Send in the clowns. They're already here.
So we know that children do best in a quiet learning environment, but we forget that puppies do best in a quiet learning environment too. Yes.
You know what else we forget a lot? that there is a lot of grades there. You start at kindergarten, you can't jump to university graduation, you know? You need to be fair to the dog and think about all the steps that go into learning, right? Not only is there repetition, but there's the retention piece, right? We need to practice enough of this thing for the dog to be like, okay, yeah, I can do that, no problem. Once we get to the point where it's like, oh, that's super easy, right? Super easy to send my dog to the bed. They clearly know what to do in that situation. So let's talk a little bit about the process of building that value for the bed. So when you are working on sending your dog to a place, where do you start?
I start with the dog very close to it.
Perfect.
So I have my bed right in front of my dog's nose. I have a couple little treats. You ready? You ready? Ready? And I give the treats a little toss and let the dog jump up on the bed. And the dog's like, wow, getting up on here was fun. And I got treats.
Absolutely. Something that I really like to make sure I impress upon people is the release factor. Because this is something that we want to instill. You get up there and then you don't get off until I release. The dog doesn't know that at this early stage. They have no idea what the duration should be at this early stage. But we want to set the tone. So I do the same thing. I do a very similar thing. Encourage the dog onto the bed with food. Mark yes. Reward them on the bed. Let them know that the bed is a wonderful place to be. And then I tell them, okay. And I let them off the bed. Whatever your release word, whatever release word you want to use, you know, pick that, stick to it, and use it consistently so they know they're waiting for that moment to get off the bed as well. And they might beat you off the bed. Just pretend it was your idea.
Tossing that okay or all done or whatever. Yes,
absolutely. And then, so how do you progress from that? So do you think that it is reasonable to go from right there at the bed to then moving all the way to the door?
No. We progress very slow increments. So my dog can do it 6 inches from the bed. You know, maybe we're going to move a foot to 2 feet away from the bed, depending on the dog. So I'm going to go very slow.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep it valuable for the dog. Keep making sure that when they hit that bed, you let them know it's the greatest place to be, right? You let them know with your voice and then follow through with rewards. As you're sending them to the bed, initially you might have to move with them. But as time goes on, it's really advantageous for you to send and sit back. So make sure that that is part of your process as well. As you're working with the dog, it's so important to get that idea. They're going to take a lot of security with you walking with them to the bed. So we want to make sure that they also learn to be secure in the idea of moving away from you to go onto that bed. Do that when you're nice and close as well. And then as you're building distance, you will see that benefit. Keep in mind that you're probably going to need to build distance more slowly than you would expect, but you will be able to build distance. So try not to stagnate in any one short stride from the bed, but also make sure that you're not moving away too far too fast.
I remember one time I was head instructing one of our classes, and our I don't know the dimensions of our halls, but they're very long.
Big.
Yeah, they're very long. And
they're at least 100 feet.
Yes. So I was teaching the class. I was introducing the go to your mat to our class, and I had we have an audience that sits at the back, and I had pre-placed one of Cowboy's mats way out there, so a good 100 feet from where I was teaching. And I said, today we're teaching the dogs, go lie down. And so I got Cowboy, hey, Cowboy, come on, where's your bed? Go lie down. And I motioned in the direction it was because it was a distance away. And you could see her kind of scan, and then she spotted it, and she, broke into a good jog and jogged that 100 feet, and she got to her bed and she lied down, because that was the second part that I did teach, to get to your bed and lie down. And I remember the students all like, oh, because it was such, such a good demonstration.
Absolutely.
And you could see her scanning for it. And when she saw it, she just immediately left me and went to that bed.
Yeah. Well, and I bet as they were sitting there waiting for class to start, waiting for other exercises to go by, I bet people noticed there was a bed back there. And were like, oh, I wonder what that's back there for. So then when you started doing that, they were connecting the dots, and you get that little rush of excitement when you're like, oh, now I know what that's for. Let's see if a dog can do that. They can run 100 feet to get on their bed. That's amazing.
Yes. So, and Cowboy was my best bed dog. Cowboy she was a Saluki, so she had very little body fat, and she was very short haired. She was a smooth Saluki. So she She loved comfort more than anything in the world. So she was very easy to teach to go to beds because she's like, wherever it's comfy, I'm going.
I want to be there.
It's awful standing here. I need to be on something soft.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, poor thing. In Canada when she's a desert breed. That was probably really hard. Alrighty, so we've got this bed send. You know, I was just thinking we should clarify too. It could be a crate. There's no reason it couldn't be a crate. And at some point, you can teach the dog to go into the crate and not release until you actually release them. So as long as the door is still open.
Because once you have a puppy, you suddenly realize what a handy end table your crate
makes. Absolutely. I have one serving as my bed end table now. It's Levon's crate. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I've had an actual end table for many decades now.
Just been crates.
Always been a crate. Yeah.
Even my wire crates, I've cut plywood to put on top of them, so now they're a handy dandy little table. Yeah,
absolutely. You know what? You should put little drink holders in it.
Right,
a little magazine
fancy
rack
it up
on the side. Yeah. Actually, there are some pretty nice fancy crates that you can buy for like living room furniture now, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. There you go.
Yeah. So you could use your crate, sending the dog to the crate. So eventually I'm going to put the word to it. Let it go to your bed. And then eventually once the dog knows it well, I'm going to put a sound to it. So it's bong, bong. Go to your...
Ayuga.
Right. So the dog hears the bong, bong, and then I send them to their bed. So dogs are pretty smart. And they're like, oh, you know what? When I hear the bong, bong, it means to go to my bed. Now, this means I have to have an accomplice, a partner in crime.
Maybe, or... You could maybe have your phone with a bong bong.
Oh, that's...
Like you could download these days.
That's technologically very savvy of you.
So easy.
Right.
Before, when we were raising our puppies 15 years ago, you had to have an accomplice.
Right.
But now, seriously though, in all of our teachings, what we want to do is not leave it to chance, right? So we're being funny and tongue in cheek that you need to have an accomplice, but truly you do need to have a setup situation to work through.
Yes, you're setting this up.
Yep, absolutely. So that would be a good next step as you're proofing things, right? Once the dog is at the point where they understand how to go to the place, how to remain on the place, you know, you might start some mild distractions. What would you consider a mild distraction?
Mild distraction is me moving away. So me walking across the room, walking to the door, maybe me putting on my shoes. Maybe having my son walk past. So I would say those are mild distractions. Me maybe dropping my car keys on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah, not on the soft. I don't want to scare my dog. So on a carpet, I'll drop my car keys on carpet.
Good. There you go.
Not that I have like one of those big, huge key things where it'd be like a big noise. But yeah, I don't want the dog to suddenly startle at the sound of keys hitting the ground.
Right. So some mild distractions. Yeah. So then some medium distractions. What do you think that might look
Medium
like?
distraction, maybe I would start to sweep the floor.
Okay.
You know, sweeping the floor, depending on the dog. Some dogs, that's a huge distraction. Another distraction might be I go to the front door and touch the handle and turn it.
I like that one. That's good. I
open the closet and put my coat on. Things like that. Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. And then as one of those distractions and as one of those things that the dog needs to understand, opening the door.
Then opening the door is the big one, yes.
Yeah, we get into the tougher distractions for sure. And it's so important to be gradual with your dogs. Yes. So each dog is going to be different. Dogs learn at different rates. Humans train at different rates. You know, there's no formulaic response to how many repetitions you need to do, but you need a lot. Yes. You know, you really need to make sure that the dog understands the behavior very thoroughly.
Right.
We don't want to be... You know, if we only give them sort of a surface level lesson and then we really expect them to perform in day-to-day life, we're going to be disappointed.
Right, yes. I read another saying. I can't remember what it is exactly. Let me think of it. Let me think. Don't be disappointed by the results that you didn't get.
From the work you didn't put in.
From the work you didn't put in.
Yeah,
yes.
I love that one.
Yes.
I love that one.
That's a good one.
That definitely needs to be on T-shirts.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and it's true. Yeah. People don't put enough work into their dog. They expect too much of the dog and too little of themselves, which is another favorite saying of ours. Yes.
And like life is busy. People have families and kids, and this is it's a common complaint that we get. I don't have all this time to train my dog. You do, though. You can't put the cart before the horse, right? You can't want the gratification of a dog who is loose and free and listens before you've put in the work. That's the thing. So if it takes you a little bit longer than you're expecting to train your dog, that's okay. If it takes you a lot longer to train your dog, that's okay.
Right.
But in the meantime, you need to have good management in place. Right. You need to not do things like take off the leash and assume the dog knows. And, you definitely don't want to put a half effort into training the dog, because then you're going to be disappointed in the end. The dog might end up getting hurt in a situation where they don't listen. Right. Like, it's a recipe for disaster, right? It's the same thing with kids.
Right.
If you don't have the time to send them to swimming lessons and get them to the point where they're proficiently safe enough in the water to keep themselves from drowning, you're not going to let them go swimming on their own. You're not going to take off the life jacket. Yep. These are the management tools that we have in place to keep them safe. We just need to put the same principles into the dog.
Yes.
And that means being certain that the dog is going to listen in situations where there might be a dangerous element.
Right.
So there's no statute of limitations in terms of the time that you need to have before you can have the freedom with your dog. You can have your dog be 1.5 years, 2 years old if you want to, before you say, okay, I'm going to start working towards off leash or having an off leash dog. Right, if you don't have the time to get there, we understand that. That's life.
Because people often ask, like, is there a magic age? Like,
I wish.
When can I expect my dog to come when called? Well, there's no age.
I know.
It's work. It's
42.
It's all the amount of work that you put in and how dedicated you are.
Absolutely. And like that dedication, I mean, we can afford that dedication if we have the time for that dedication. So like, don't beat yourself up about it, right? If you don't have the time for it at that point, meet the dog's needs, of course. Use good management to keep them safe. Do what you need to do to make sure that they have a good life until you can get to that. Okay, now I have some time I'm going to dedicate to training, right? This big project at work has ended. I have an extra hour at home every evening. I'm going to train the dog for half of that time, right? Like, just put in the reps, and then you're going to get some results. And dogs are amazing. Like, they suck in information really quickly when we give them the incentive to do so. So.
And pick and choose what's important to you, too. Like, with Honda, he is 12 inches tall. It's not important to me that he doesn't counter surf because he can't reach a counter. So
you don't have tiny little counters for him
no,
to surf at?
No. So I've never had to work with Honda on counter surfing. Now, I have had to work with him on not stealing things from the coffee table because that's at his level. But, so pick and choose what's appropriate, for your dog and what's appropriate for your family as well. People with children have a whole other, you got to teach the dog not to snatch cookies from the little kids or not to, lick the little kids, faces clean. Yeah. Whereas if you don't have children, those things aren't as big of a worry. Yes.
Go find some random children with dirty faces.
Right, yeah. So pick what's important to your family and yourself and your lifestyle too, and focus on those things first, and then the other things can be icing on the cake.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, I don't have a doorbell, so I'm not spending a whole bunch of time ringing the doorbell and working doorman on the spot. I might work some knocking at some point.
What now, speaking of the doors again, is there another safety? Let's sing a door song. I'm trying. Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm. Into this world we're thrown.
I think
to this world we're thrown. Yeah.
You're probably right. All right.
So
love me 2 times, baby. All right, we'll move on.
I'm gonna wait today. We went and saw the Becoming Led Zeppelin movie on the weekend.
How was it?
Quite good. Now you have to like Led Zeppelin. If you don't like Led Zeppelin, do not go to see this movie. It's one of those movies.
Advice.
Yes, that's my big advice.
Yeah, if you're not an Elvis fan, don't go to Graceland.
Right, yes. Back to doors. Yeah. So another thing is I like to teach my dogs not to rush out a door if a door is open. So it doesn't matter if that front door is open, you never leave.
Yeah. I will tell you, I teach all of my dogs this. And even before I added locks to gates and things like that, I taught all of my dogs this. If you see a door open, you don't go through a door unless you have permission to go through a door.
Exactly, yes.
So, okay, that is a great segue into talking about not rushing out a door just because it's there. So let's talk about when you have a puppy, what are some of the lessons that you're doing at the front door to help them understand?
Well, my puppy is always on a leash or a long line all the time. So I can prevent it from ever happening.
Perfect.
So that's the first thing is prevention. So it's never going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to build a lot of value for things surrounding the door. So I talked at the beginning of the episode about how people often create a singular focus for their dogs. You open the door, we go through it, and exciting things happen, right? So what I do at the door is I make sure that my dog has an understanding that other things might happen. Right. I make sure I practice obedience skills around the dog, right? Or around the door, pardon me. I practice my obedience skills around the dog. I practice my obedience skills with the dog around the door. Right. So like I work a lot on response to name around the door. I make sure that part of my response to name training is over the threshold of that door, right? I tell them, okay, give them permission to walk out. And then as soon as they're sort of over the threshold, call their name. And when they turn, what a good dog. I have a huge party. And that is by design. They get lots of cookies. They get lots of play. I might run back into the house and let them chase me a bit. I have all these value building exercises that I do at the door so that the dog goes, I love listening at the door. Yes. Holy cow, this is a good place to listen. So that if there is ever an inevitable moment where the door opens and they go walking through it, I know I can call them back.
Yes, or any family member could call them back. Yes. Yeah. So that's another place too, is I practice tons of recalls on my front lawn too, because I want my dog to know that you always come when you're called. If you're on the front lawn, you're on the driveway, on the porch.
I love that. That's so smart. And what we put our time and our intentions behind is what gets better. Yes. So if you have any concerns at all, if you live on a busy street, if you have woods in the back that the dog might go running into and get lost quickly, like there's all sorts of value that you can build for responding in those situations, but we need to do it ahead of time. We can't just wait until the first moment where the dog slips out the door and then we're hoping that our recall works.
Yes.
Again, right back to that saying that you just said, don't expect to get the results from the work you didn't put in. Yep. Like if you don't take the time and put in the effort, it's probably not going to happen. Right. I've never had one of those good old dogs in my life that just listens because.
Right, yes. And dogs will repeat anything that's fun and rewarding. So if your dog goes zooming out the front door and you're madly chasing it, that's fun.
Yeah.
And that makes a big imprint in the dog's head. And
it really does.
They have great memories for good and bad. Yeah. So they will remember, that was fun. Yeah. I want to do that again.
Back when I was like 15, 16-year-old Shannon, I might have even been younger than that, actually. I might have been like 12, 13-year-old Shannon. Regardless, my sister had a boyfriend who had a shepherd cross named Cindy. And like, she was a fun dog. Yeah. I was madly in love with dogs, of course. Couldn't have a dog of my own at that point. Never had been able to have a dog. Like I was one of those deprived children with no dogs. It was sad. We had a cat in the house, an old cat that didn't like children. Oh, what a sad existence. Anyways, that's besides the point. So Cindy was a very spirited dog. Right. And my sister's boyfriend at the time, obviously ex now because we're much older. 14,
well, they could have been. Childhood sweethearts. Yeah.
Could have lasted. But no, it didn't.
Didn't last.
Imagine that.
That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah. Anyways, he did not believe in training. He thought, I don't want a robot. I want my fun dog. Oh. And it actually ended poorly for him. So that really shaped my early thoughts on if I do get a dog, when I do get a dog, because I always wanted a dog. When I do get dogs, they will be well trained. Right. And of course, we know how that ended up because here I am 25 years at McCannDogs. Yeah.
So what happened with Cindy?
Unfortunately, she had some biting incidents and was euthanized. Oh. So, it was a sad end of the story. Right. But the story that I was going to tell that wasn't the sad end of the story, I was dog sitting her one day because my sister and this guy had gone somewhere. I can't remember where. So I got to look after Cindy, and I was so excited to look after Cindy. And then somebody came to the door and Cindy went running out the front door and I had no leash on her. And my mother and I both, I remember my mother and I both running down the street after this dog who was, now I look back on it and I'm like, oh, she was so playing keep away. She knew we were coming. As soon as we'd get anywhere close, she'd be like, screw you, I'm out of here. And she'd run another, 50 feet and then be snarfling in this, that, or the other. Luckily, at some point, there was a man out watering his grass and she was willing to go to him. Sometimes the novelty of a stranger, right?
Yes.
And he was able to take control of her collar and then, we came in with the leash and clipped it on and embarrassingly walked home with Cindy thinking like, why hasn't Brad trained this dog?
Were you in your socks? Did you have time to put on your shoes or were you out there in your socks?
I can't recall.
I've seen people chasing their dogs in their socks outside. It's like, that they're panicked. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kip saw somebody in a snowstorm in their no shoes, no socks, shorts, t-shirt, freezing cold, running down a busy road chasing a dog. And it was like, oh, that is just brutal. Yes. Brutal. Anyways. So like I've had this experience and it's terrifying. And luckily, we didn't live in a busy streets and the survey was fairly quiet, very residential area, but it could have been a disaster. Right. And I often think about that and I think about like the panic that I felt and I think about how terrifying it was and how grateful I was when she finally did go and get contained by this man because I thought we're going to be out here forever. Right. What am I going to say to them when they get back from wherever they are? How am I going to tell them that I lost his dog? I had this one job and anyways, that all ended okay. But that like if the dog had some understanding of threshold manners and door manners at that point, it never would have happened. Right. And like it was a really dark moment, worrying about losing that dog. So it's so nice to have these things in place ahead of time and just a little bit of practice, right? So walking towards the door, I'll put my hand on the door and at that point I'll cue the dog to sit. And the expectation is, of course, that the dog sits. If they don't, I'll help them into the sit. Right. And then I reward it. I make it valuable for the dog to get into the sit, to hold the sit, and then I start to, turn the door handle, right? And I might yes and feed the dog. Then I might turn the door handle and open it a crack and yes and feed the dog. My expectation the entire time is that the butt stays on the ground. Right. It's not that I get the door open. It's not that I get out to get on my walk. If I was desperate to get the dog out to go to the bathroom, those are things that I would have to consider in that moment. Right. So I don't want to have to worry about that. I want to train my dog, right? I want to know that it doesn't matter what might be happening, might happen, might have happened. This dog just needs to hold the sit until I say, okay. Yes. So I'm slowly opening the door. I'm rewarding the dog for holding the sit. If the dog gets up, I close the door and I make the dog sit again, right? And then I try again, right? I'm not trying to tell the dog that they can't ever go through the door, but I do want to make sure that it's on my cue. Right. So when I say, okay, that's the point where the dog can then get up and exit the door. So I need to give them a clear release in order for that thing to happen. And I might say, okay, and back away from the door, right? Maybe I have the leash in my hand. Maybe I say, okay, and I encourage the dog to move with me back into the house. Just because the door is open doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get to go through it.
Right, yes.
And that's an important part of the distinction as well. There's other options around the door other than bursting through it.
You might tell your dog to wait and you go out on the porch and pick up some mail. Yeah. Or pick up the newspaper. Yeah. Yeah, and then you come back in and the dog never got to go out, but they watched you do things out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, those are great little things to do with the dog so that they understand, okay, this might happen. I might not get to go out. There's going to be times where you do say, okay, and you walk out through the door. Maybe you get to the other side of the door and then you just work a sit again and reward the dog for sitting, then go back inside. Maybe you'd go and do a little loop around your driveway or have a playtime outside and then run back in the house. Feed the dog a bunch of cookies when you run back in the house, right? The dog goes, wow, moving back in the house with you is a great thing. Right, all those dogs that go, I don't want to come in from the backyard. Keep some cookies at the back door. Right. Run inside the house with them. And when they get inside the house, don't shake the cookie jar around and say, dog, please come in the house because I have these cookies. That is bribery. But if you go, okay, we're going in the house and you bring the dog in the house with you. And when you get in there, you go, oh, this is such a great thing. And you feed them a couple of cookies. Why wouldn't the dog want to come in the house when you call them?
That just when you were talking about shaking the cookies reminded me of a story. When I lived in Nova Scotia, we had a tenant that lived in one of the cottages on our property, and they had a German Shepherd pointer that was always tied up when it was outside. Okay. And one day I looked out and the dog had collar had broken or something had come loose. We had about 7 acres, and the dog was running, but we lived on a very busy highway. And I'm like, oh no. So right away I called the tenant. I said, did you know that, I can't think of what his name was, Silas. Did you know that Silas is out? And he's like, no. And so I'm going outdoors with one of my dogs, probably Honda, to see if I can get the dog interested to come over to me, because I knew the dog had no training. Okay. And he came out with a huge box of milk bones. And he had these milk bones, and he's yelling the dog's name and shaking the milk bones.
Oh, yeah. And fingers crossed.
Yes. Now, it worked. But that's not ideal.
No,
that's not ideal. It worked,
really
but it's not ideal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Luckily, it worked in that situation. For that
yes.
dog. But
yes.
my goodness, you're really throwing caution to the wind.
Right.
And taking a chance by using that kind of thing. And here's the thing, too. A lot of dogs will, fall for it a time or two. Right. And then they get tied back up again, or they get put in the house where they didn't want to be. And they get wise to it. Right? So it's probably not going to work very often. I remember my early field training days. I don't know if I should tell this story or not. My early field training days, I was out with a very amateur group.
Right.
And one of Jaden's litter mates was doing a little bit of sightseeing, if you will, and was being a goofy dog was saying, you know what, you make me. Right. You make me. You catch me if you can. Right. And the woman that was training her was, going through all the motions of, well, I'm leaving now, and getting back in the car and things like that. And it was like, it's not working. How many times have you done this?
Yes.
They get wise to it.
They do.
It might work a couple of times, but once they figure out what this game is, they're going to be wise to it, and it's going to be really, really hard. Right. So just take some time and train a recall. Get the dog on your side instead of having an adversarial relationship with them where it's like, you can't make me do it, because if you've not put the time in, if you've not put the effort in, and then you've had to chase the dog around, that's their entertainment.
Right, yes.
And in their mind, that's what they do.
Right.
It's a game.
Right. And just because your dog comes at home in the yard does not mean they'll come running loose on the beach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, you need to train in different places.
Yeah, for sure. Set up that recall. Put the effort into your recall if you're ever going to, even if you don't let the dog off leash, accidents happen. Yep. It's so important to have a recall. So there's some things that you can just not even worry about training with dogs, but recall, I would say, is one of the things that all dogs should absolutely have. So whether it's slipping out the door, whether it's slipping out the gate in the backyard, these are things that you can play at those thresholds as well.
And that's another thing. I at our last house, I taught the dogs they could go out the back door on their own, but they could never go out the front door on their own. They could never leave the porch on their own. They could never go through the gate on their own. Perfect. So there was so many stop guards that, in case something happened, I couldn't see the gate from my back door.
Okay.
And you never know if maybe a kid next door is, a toy's fallen over, so they've come over to get it, or maybe the meter reader was in there, or the wind's blown it open. So with me not being able to see that gate, I wanted to make double sure that if it was open, they wouldn't just run out.
Absolutely. That happened to me on Alice Street. I had sort of a middle-aged couple that were living in the house next door, no kids, no dogs, whatever. Life was fine.
Right.
And then they moved out, and a family moved in with a whole bunch of kids.
Oh, right.
And I remember seeing a ball come over my fence one day and thinking, I'm putting locks on those gates.
Yes.
Like, I happened to be out there when it did, and I just tossed it back and no problem.
Right.
They were nice kids.
Yes.
No issues whatsoever with the kids. But if a ball comes over into a yard, sometimes they go and they open a gate to get it. Right. And it's like, I don't want my dogs getting out. So I had done the threshold training for sure. But I also thought, I want them to come and knock on my door and say, hey, we lost our ball in your yard. Can you help us? Yeah, no problem. I'll go and get it for you and toss it back over the fence. But I don't ever want anybody thinking that it's a good idea to come in my yard, because I'm not always watching my dogs in the yard.
Exactly.
Once they get to an age where they're self-sufficient, I mean, Levon at almost a year, he's been going out to go to the bathroom in our yard solo now for 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, once they get to that point, I want to make sure that they're secure back there because I'm not paying attention, right? Unless there's a really strong wind and I'm checking fence panels to make sure that nothing's blown down.
Yep.
Aside from that, I'm probably not paying too much attention to the dogs when they're out doing their business at this point because there's no need, right? If there's a need, but there's no need. So anyways, I will do the threshold training in the yard too. I'll do the threshold training at my front door that might lead out to the road. I have very specific rules on my deck as well. And I actually have a gate on my deck. When I first moved in, I was using we have a big deck, wraps around. Well, you've seen it.
Yes.
It wraps around the house. All our podcast audience hasn't seen it yet. I'm planning on sending out invites. But I have a beautiful big deck and we all hang out on it all the time. My partner, myself, the dogs. And I just wanted to be able to not worry about them. So I put a gate at the top of those, but there's very specific rules as well concerning the gate. When the gate opens, you're not allowed to go through unless I'm with you. You're not allowed to go through until I've said okay for that. Like there's all sorts of situations that might happen. It blew open the other day because everything was really cold.
Right. Yeah.
And there was lots of wind blowing and the latch had just expanded enough that it didn't quite catch perfectly when it got closed. I want to make sure that the dogs are not going to just beeline down there chasing a rabbit and, lost in the wetlands, so to speak.
Right. Yes.
So, such important things. And really, that little bit of a time investment is going to make a huge deal. So I think we need to talk a little bit more about greeting manners because greeting manners at the door are a huge thing.
Right, yes.
So this is something that it's important to put effort into too.
Right.
So talk a little bit about your rituals when you have a young dog. What are you doing if you do, aside from the up in arms piece, we talked about having people ignore, etc. But do you eventually get to a point where you let your dogs greet at the front door?
Yes. And, with certain people, yes.
And what does that look like?
Well, my dogs, now that they're older and more experienced, they'll just basically, they know not to go out. So they'll kind of just, if I'm, say someone's, selling me something at the door, I can open the door and the dogs will kind of just, teeter at the end of the threshold, like maybe trying to sniff the person, but they're not trying to jump or walk out to greet them. They're just hanging there.
Okay.
If the person wanted to pat them, at this point now, they could reach down and pat them and the dogs would be fine. But if it was a younger dog, the dog would be on leash and I'd place the dog into a sit and I would ask the dog to hold a sit position while the person reached in and passed. And I would let the person know as well, if they stand up, please immediately stop patting them. They can only get a pat when they're sitting. Perfect. So a sitting dog is not jumping on people, which is a good fail-safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Most definitely. I'm the same. I have certain people that I let the dogs go a little bit wilder with, and then there's certain people that I think, you know what, I don't know if this person likes dogs, wants my dogs in their space, etc. So I like to have both options, right? So,
although sometimes dogs are good for chasing people away who are at your door too.
It's true.
Yes.
It's true. And who wants non-dog people at the door, right? Like,
right.
Ooh,
yes.
What are these people doing here in my house?
A couple times I've answered the door and went, I don't want to sign a new contract for something, and I think I'll just get rid of them by letting my dogs be naughty. So I was like, oh, dogs! Like, let the dogs kind of look a little bit wild, and you can see the people go, yeah, we don't want to deal with that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I've never thought of that. I've never thought of that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, my dogs, I can't talk. My dogs are escaping. Like,
there you go. There you go. Oh man, that's funny. So I always give permission.
Right.
For the wild stuff. So I like to have crazy, like I love playing tug with my dogs, with the arms of my coats. My heavy winter coat especially can take a licking. So Levon especially, he's a very, very tuggy dog. He loves to tug. He loves to bite. He loves to have fun with that. Like, I mean, in play. So I will often use things like that to have a quick toy, right? We're out on the trails. I'm just in my coat. Well, I usually have pants and other things on too. But I don't have like food and toys on me.
Shannon's just out there in her coat, folks.
Why bother with a coat? So if I'm out on my trails, for example, and I'm walking and I call Levon and he comes running, I want to reward him with something. Right. So I look for things that I can do all the time. I have, snow rituals, right?
Yeah.
Right now there's snow everywhere. My dogs love it when I make and throw snowballs for them, right?
Yep.
So Ned's always watching me when we're out and it's snowy. You know, if he sees me lean down to grab the snow, he comes tearing over right away. He knows what it means. And then like he won't take his eyes off me until I've thrown that snowball.
Right.
But sometimes it's sometimes I have to be a little sneaky. But yeah, like I have things like that. I want to have, you know, something that they can tug on. So I'll offer my coat, my sleeve, my arm, etc.
Or it could be your leash if you're carrying your leash.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Within the confines of what's acceptable in play. They know that they can't bite hard. They know that they should stick to the material itself and not my arm because I've been very consistent at establishing that. Anytime I feel their teeth on my arm, the game ends. You know what? You don't get to keep playing if you're not careful. If it's really sore, like if they really bite hard, they get in a little bit of trouble. Like it's something that I've been clear and consistent with the rules with.
I say Atari was, I could play tug of war with her with my finger. My finger. Because she
hilarious.
had a tiny little mouth and very narrow, shelty little mouth. And her little canines would just hook over my finger and I could have a little game of tug, tug, tug on my finger with her. Yeah. I haven't had any other dogs that have had that good mouth shape, but she was perfect for that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having rewards at the ready is an absolutely phenomenal thing to do. And if you put it under stimulus control, it's no harm done, right?
Yes.
Like he doesn't go and try to grab other people's arms when when there's some random event happening just because it looks appealing to him. He has to hear me say, I say Darsh, which is so funny. It's like the German IGP bite command and my little toller here and telling, you know, but it's my joke. It's my inside joke, I guess, with Avon. So yeah, I say Darsh and he grabs my arm and we have a little tug and he would never do that unless I said
unless you've asked it,
you know? Like it's just not going to happen because he knows that he's not going to get the reinforcement back, right? If he goes to grab my arm when he is not in, he hasn't done it since he was a much younger puppy. But if he would go to grab my arm because he wanted to initiate that play, well, I'm not giving in. I'm not letting you initiate that play. I'm also going to take your collar and tell you to settle. I'm going to let you know that this is not an acceptable activity for you right now. I've taught him how to settle when I take his collar as well. So that's a skill that he has. You know, I'm going to be very clear with him. You can only do this when I invite it.
Right.
And then, go nuts. Let's have fun. So you can have all sorts of fun things on stimulus control. And to take this back to the original point, when my sister and family come, my niece and nephew, for example, that's a great opportunity. And I always make sure that he has a calm mind first. Right. So I don't just let this situation unfold as they come in the house. I go, okay, go wild and, go say hello. He's usually on place. He needs to contain himself, have some emotional control. I let them come in. They put their coats away, et cetera, et cetera. And then once they're ready and I look at him and I know that he is settled enough in his brain that, okay, this is going to go okay. If he's like rattling on the bed, you know what? Let's just let him settle in before we say hello, guys. You know, come into the living room. Let's sit down for a bit. He'll just chill on his place there. Once he's calm, once he's settled. Right. Okay, now you can go wild. Now you can go in. You can have your fun and, you know, he ramps up in a second again, of course. Like, he's not going to be, oh, now I'm boring or now I'm bored. No, he's excited to see them still, but it's not that over-the-top chaotic energy that I don't want to reinforce. So.
Now, did you teach him to stay off, like to be off people, not to jump?
Yep.
As a separate thing, or did you wait until your family arrived and then in the melee start teaching him an off command?
Oh, heavens, can you imagine? No, definitely not.
So many people do that. People start yelling off, down, off, but they've done no prep work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the dog's like, I don't know what you're saying, but it sounds fun. Like,
yeah, we're having fun. Yeah, off, we're offing. We're offing.
Yeah. So, you don't leave it till the end.
Absolutely.
So I start right off the bat when my dogs are babies, teaching them what off means.
Absolutely.
Off means 4 on the floor.
Yeah. And do you start with people?
No, I start with an object.
I think that is very smart.
And so I take a low stool and I'll say up and I'll lure the puppy up on the stool. A footstool.
I know. I don't know why I found that funny. That's my immature side showing. I have no excuse other than immaturity.
And then I'll say off and lure them off and reward them multiple times for being off. So the puppy's learning what up and off mean in a calm learning environment.
Perfect.
I also don't allow people to pat my puppy while they're jumping. So at 8 weeks, Shannon is trying to hold herself in from laughing.
When you're in the when you were in the classroom as a child and you're trying so hard to contain yourself and you can't, and it becomes even funnier. That is what's happening
Get the case
to me
of
right
the giggles.
now. So, goose faba. I'm trying to calm. I'm overstimulated.
So when my puppy's 8 weeks old, it's adorable to have like a 5-pound puppy jump on you and play. But the puppy doesn't understand that as he's 10 pounds, as he's 20 pounds. He's like, you know what? What I learned first, I learned best. Yeah. And it's fun and rewarding to jump on people.
Absolutely.
So at 5 pounds, I'm letting my guests know, no, if he jumps up on you, I'd like you just to place him back down gently, reward him for being off you. If he jumps up, stop patting, stop the attention, get those 4 feet back on the floor.
Perfect.
So he's never under any times allowed to jump on people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is such an important lesson for them to get before they're in that overstimulated mode. Like if you were trying to teach me in that moment where I was trying not to laugh and I was overstimulated, I'm probably not learning well, right? Yes. It's just not going to happen for me. So same thing with our dogs. And when you do involve people, it's nice to set it up too.
Right.
You know, those first guests that come to the door, it's nice that they're set up people. Like I would maybe set up with Kip, my partner, who, he's already in the house first. You know, it's not even when he's coming home from work and, Honda, are you okay over there?
Is he okay?
Yeah, he's just picking up his paws. Anyways, I think he's just getting bored.
Right. He's getting it. You know what? It probably is close to his supper time.
Oh, it might be. It's close to mine too.
You have to wait.
Yeah.
You have to wait.
Oh, you said supper. Now he's talking.
And he doesn't hear though.
He doesn't hear. He
must
have seen you mouth the words.
I think he eats. Honda has because he's elderly. He gets the early bird supper special. He eats at 3, and I bet it's getting close.
I'm pretty sure it's probably after 3 at this point. But anyways. Yeah, so I might have like Kip when he is home already. Levon's already greeted him. This is not the exciting period. Okay, I want you to go and knock on the door and come in. I need to work on some, some control, some emotional control. And it takes 5 minutes for Kip to, walk out of the house and then turn around and knock, open the door. For me to get through 5 minutes worth of training with Levon, with Kip doing this, it's a piece of cake, but it's so good for Levon because he's seeing this picture.
Yes.
And then I might do that a bunch of times. I might have my sister and family, right? Once they've settled in, and I might have them practice this. And that way he's seen this picture. He has lived through this picture. He's been rewarded and built value in this picture, and he knows what he's supposed to be doing. Right. And now I can start to think about doing this with more novel people. Maybe I invite you over. Maybe I say, okay, Swanee, come help me train my dog. I need to do door manners. And I'm ready when you get there. I'm going to tell you, just knock on the door and then come in.
Right. Yeah.
And when you open the door, I'm working my dog. Yes. I don't expect you to want to have a full conversation or want me to take your coat, etc. at that moment. Yep. I can focus completely on training my dog.
Right.
And then once that's done, we have our fun, right? We have our visit. We have our, Levon can go and say hello to you. Levon loves Swanee. He loves the blonde goddess. Loves her. So, then he can have his time with you and we can hang out and things will be great. But I've had this opportunity to do some training with somebody who's a little bit more novel. And then maybe it's somebody else that's more novel, right? I don't want to start with the novel people.
Exactly.
That's
too
hard.
Right. And you want to start with people that you can coach as well.
You got it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I have found out that you are coachable.
I am capable of learning.
Yeah. But after all this talk, when we walk out that door, are you going to be polite about it?
Oh, no, I'm rushing through that door. Shannon's not going to be catching me.
We're going to check and make sure now. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. I'm Instructor Shannon.
Instructor Swanee.
Happy training.
The McCannDogs podcast is brought to you by McCann Professional Dog Trainers. We help dog owners to have a well-behaved, four-legged family member. Please give us a call at 905-659-1888 or visit us at McCannDogs.com. Happy training!